Hello everybody. I've been off the air for a while in the hope that things would cool down. I'm not talking climate change. Instead, since the attempt on former President Trump's life, they've heated up to the extent that the spectacular failure, I'm quoting the new acting director of the US Secret Service, this example of incompetence has been pushed off the headlines. I'll get back to that. In the meantime, I've adopted a new call sign. Outsider. Let me explain. A kind friend, somebody who indulges in the English pastime of banter, gets at me for living cloud hidden in my eyrie above Bangkok. I'm remote, elitist, arrogant, disengaged, not a man of the people. Why, he says, do I not come down, befriend the denizens of the local clubs and pubs, the local noodle cellar, hang out? Added to being a male dinosaur of the old school, that's a pretty hefty indictment. It's partially true. I do actually look down physically over Krung Thep Mahanakhon, the Thai name for the City of Angels, Bangkok. Our apartment is 10 stories up, and what with age, infirmity, and a depleted bank balance, there's not much incentive these days to come down and chase the fun and fornication that this city can still provide. In my mind, I became a man with little or no affiliation about 30 years ago. I've worked all over the world, from Afghanistan to Zambia and the usual shitholes in between. Great fun. And now seems the time to sit back, observe from my eyrie, and opine about whatever catches my attention. I am the outsider. No strong ethnic or national perspective point of view. In Thailand, I live as a guest. All us foreigners, do live as guests, no matter how much we kid ourselves, or how long we've been here, or how much we've invested. No nonsense about undocumented immigration here. Offend the locals and you get taken straight to the airport and put on the first plane out. I have no ideology to sell. They all seem to be narratives constructed to gaslight people into giving up control of themselves to God or a dictator or some so-called democratically elected group. I guess I'm a secular Buddhist of sorts. I don't buy into the local version of Buddhism with its venal monks, superstition, and hands out for money. But the basic teachings of Siddhartha Gautama seem right enough. Be compassionate. Understand that the only permanent thing is change, and that your misdeeds will come back to bite you in the arse. Grasping for things induces suffering, he says, so it's your choice. Prince Siddhartha doesn't care what you choose. He's dead. So enough of this philosophical nonsense. Here's an update from the outside, from the eyrie. What's the big picture? In my last video, I talked about civilization and about how the ancient cultures of the South and East, led by China and India, are reassuming a position that they lost only in about the last 500 years to the collective West. Some rightly criticized that I had ignored another dimension, that technology was resolving people into those that gained the benefits of innovation, such as AI, and those who would be marginalized by it, probably the majority. I'll argue that the current AI revolution is not much different from what happened before with steam in the 18th and 19th centuries. That meant that the West became the elite. Now there'll be a vertical cut too, with a global technical elite against a new global peasant class. Demographics will play a huge part in this, with birth replacements diving in the wealthier countries, but large population increases in Africa and in most Muslim countries. The rich elite will be forced to develop even more powerful technologies to stay ahead. Separate branches of humanity? I don't know, maybe. More immediately, there are 3 wars that may turn into a much greater conflagration. 2 of them are hot, kinetic wars, and 1 is colder. The cold one is the remorseless advance of the Middle Kingdom, China, in Asia, the Pacific, and other debt-ridden countries. So far, I contend the West is losing this one hands down. Taiwan is probably the focal point for this Cold War. I don't believe China will invade. If it did, I'd expect a massive conflagration in the South China Sea, in which the West would come off worst. Unlikely. Taiwan will gradually be absorbed, just as Laos, somewhere I'm heading to soon, has already been. The Ukraine. I won't get into the rights and wrongs. I have no side, except a profound sympathy for the young soldiers in the trenches. I despise the power and money grubbers, the grifters, who orchestrated this slaughter. If you want real detail and analysis of this, I recommend Simplicius the Thinker. He's on Substack, and I'll put his link in the description below. I have no idea who he, she, or they are, but the analysis is by far the best. The Middle East. I did choose a side in 10-7. Before that, I'd been sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. I'd worked with a lady from Palestine, from Gaza, in Yemen, and so I knew some of the details. But 10-7 was inexcusable. Never mind the past history, never mind the legalities. This was an engineered attempt by Iran to leverage its position in the region. It drew in Yemen. Again, a country where my sympathies had lain with the Houthi, and now they're disrupting the sea trade. Gaza itself is a human catastrophe, with the sad population as much a hostage of Hamas as the Israeli hostages. The more Gazan martyrs there are, the more Hamas capitalizes on them, winning a wider global support. The fear is that this festering sore spreads. Israel rightly targets the fat Hamas cats, billionaires sitting in Qatar, Beirut, and Tehran. Cut the head off the Hydra, but the Hamas franchise grows. Iran may gain a nuclear weapon soon, and then all bets are off. Add in the great fool Erdogan posturing in Turkey, and this pot rapidly becomes World War III. Not something I want to observe in the relative safety of this eyrie in Bangkok. It's odd. When I first visited Thailand, the Vietnam and other Southeast Asian wars were all fresh in other people's minds. The colourful Thai Prime Minister, Chachai Chunavan, he rode around town on a Harley Davidson, coined the idea of battlefields turned into marketplaces. Now, we sit here in peace and prosperity, observing the world fall into pieces. Finally, the USA. I'll leave Europe for another episode. Oh dear, the USA, what a total farce. For the Trump attack, there's no one better to analyse it than Dr. Christopher Martenson. His citizens' investigation is evidence-based, analytical, and absent of excited speculation. I'll put the link in the description. For now, I'm going with blind incompetence in an agency, the Secret Service, that suffers the Washington, D.C. disease of fear and lack of accountability. Everyone else was responsible, so no one was. But there's also the attractive idea of LIHOP, L-I-H-O-P. Let it happen on purpose. I'm not saying. Neither am I taking a side. I'm not an American. I have no right to vote. Still, US policy affects my business. We get paid in dollars. And I've worked for the American people via USAID, USAID, more than for most of my other clients. If the USA cannot pick itself from the doldrums, cultural and economic, then we're all going to suffer. I don't care who does that, Republican or Democrat. On the other hand, the reality is, and this really is an outsider's perspective, whichever is the nominal winner in November, I expect the same string pullers will be tugging hard. That's another story for next time. If you've enjoyed this episode, please give it a like, hit subscribe so you can get notifications automatically, and I'll see you next time.